guys, Tracy here with One Blessed Step, and today I'm going to give you my survival guide to making it through a government shutdown. This is the 5th time our family has been furloughed. As a federal employee, my husband has been furloughed 5 times. The longest furlough that we have endured is 35 days. So in this video, I'm going to share with you the tips and tricks that I have that hopefully will help you kind of go through this furlough. Hopefully it won't last that long. Hopefully it's like a day or two, but hopefully it doesn't last into like the 35 days that have happened in the past. So I'm going to give you these tips and tricks that we do and we use in our family. And if you're ready, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so let's talk about what is a furlough. Some of you guys may not even understand what is going on. So our government runs on funding. The government will shut down if our representatives, Congress, fail to pass funding bills. So if they don't pass the funding bill, if the president doesn't sign it into law, then the government essentially shuts down. What that means is the government can't legally pay for many of its operations. So agencies will either partially close or limit services until a budget deal is reached. Let's talk about that payment. Who actually gets paid during a shutdown? So by law, the people who are required by law to be paid would be our Congress members. So the people who vote on the bills, right, and they pass these bills for funding, they're going to be paid regardless if the government shuts down or not. So in the shutdown, Congress members, your senators, your representatives, your president, your vice president, all those people, they get paid. Okay, here are the people who don't get paid. Everyone else. Okay, so let's talk about the difference between all of those people. So people who work for the government, they will have 2 different options. So one of them will be furloughed, not working, pay deferred. Okay, so that means they're not an essential person in the government, meaning they don't like carry a weapon or do border control or in the military. They're not like an essential person. There are many essential workers, but if you're a non-essential worker, you basically don't go to work and you also don't get paid during that time, and your paycheck is deferred until the government opens. So it's not a bad deal if you have some cash where you can make your bills. You're basically not working and you'll be paid for it later. So it's kind of like a vacation. There are actually more people in the next category. Those are people who are furloughed, required to work, and their payment is deferred. Their paychecks will be deferred. So that would be someone who's in the military. That would be someone who's on border patrol. That would be some Social Security workers. Probably IRS people. I'm not really sure about all the details, but there are going to be the majority of the workforce, a good portion of it, is required to go to work without pay. So they will pay for gas in their cars, they will travel to work, they will work, and if the furlough lasts long enough and paycheck's supposed to come, it won't come until the government turns back on, and then they will get what's called back pay, and then they'll be paid. So you have the federal worker who doesn't show up, and they will be paid later, and the person who shows up, and then they will also be paid later. So those are the 2 different classifications of federal workers. The next one would be a contractor. We already talked about the congressmen, so that's 3 different classifications we talked about so far. The next classification is a contractor. Likely contractors, they most likely will not go into the office, and they will also not be paid, and they will not be paid back pay. So that's kind of how it works in general with our United States government shutdown. Everyone usually has to go into the office. They have to find out which part of the club they're in, and then from there, they fall under one of those things that we just talked about. The only one who's getting paid are really congressmen and the president. Everyone else is getting paid, but usually later, unless you're a contractor, and then you're likely not going to be paid. So that's kind of how the paycheck system works in a shutdown. So let's talk about what do you do if you're not going to get your paycheck. Most Americans live paycheck to paycheck. So coming into a furlough is going to really cause some fear with people. But the Lord doesn't give us the spirit of fear. We know from 2 Timothy 1:7 that the Lord gives us the spirit of power, love, self-control. So we know we're not to fear. We are to take a minute, take a breath, pray to God, find out what he wants you to do moving forward, but implement some of the things that we're going to talk about. Now, some of you guys who are not federal employees might ask yourself, well, why even show up to work? Well, you're actually legally required to show up to work. So even if you're not going to get your paycheck, you are legally required to show up to work. So if let's say you're military, you have to show up to work even if you're not going to be paid. Well, you'll be paid later, but you won't be paid on time. So hopefully that kind of clarifies things and helps you out if you have questions about that. So let's talk about kind of a survival guide during this time. Hopefully, again, the furlough will last days and won't impact your paycheck. So that's the best scenario. So, but if it doesn't, I'm going to give you week by week plan, an essential survival guide. Okay, so week 1, you need to stabilize your income. So you want to confirm your last paycheck, make sure it covers your pre-shutdown hours. So make sure that your paycheck is coming from before the shutdown. So, make sure you turn in whatever time card you have, whatever, make sure all that paperwork's done. Make sure you're filling out any of your shutdown paperwork and closing down operations as your agency instructs you to do. The next thing personally you need to do is make a financial triage list. So you want to just kind of rank all of your expenses, your housing, your food, your transportation, your insurance, your utilities, your debt, okay? And just kind of rank those as what is the most important in, all the things, right? So rank them in order of most important to you. Everyone is different. You're going to cut non-essential spending. So any of your, subscriptions or your eating out or your extras, those things really need to be cut in case the shutdown lasts longer than, let's say, a few days, and you're going to have to start, figuring out how to eat, okay? I recommend at this time you ask your friends and family if they owe you money. So let's say you lent somebody some money. It's kind of a good time to kind of call those in, right? So if you lent someone some money and they owe it to you, you might just say, hey, I'm getting furloughed. Can I get that money that you owe me? And that way you can get that money that is owed to you. You also should be building a bare bones budget. So what are the things that are essential to your living? Now, in this channel, I have created a tiny house budget, and that shows you basically what I would need to live on, like if I was going to live on Social Security in my retirement. It's a challenge that I do. So I'm constantly challenging myself to see how little I can spend. That video or those videos might help you to kind of identify what's important so that you can create a budget that is a bare bones shutdown budget for your family. All right, so that's week 1. So week 1, stabilize. Hopefully this doesn't go on beyond week 1. Hopefully this is not a 35-day thing. Hopefully it's done in the next couple days. And I'm continuing to pray for that. But let's go into week 2. So now that we're going into week 2, let's say it continues into week 2. This is when, either that the paycheck's coming and the bills are starting to be, coming up due. So this is when you want to start looking for any low interest or zero interest type loans. So maybe you are able to go to like your credit union or your bank and find out what kind of like loan or relief programs they might be having. At week 2, they're probably not going to offer a lot, but this is for you to just kind of be aware and ready for this in case you need one of those type of loans. If a government shutdown happens for a lengthy time, there will likely be some programs to help people with some type of relief. I always recommend, like as a second option, so there's that. So look for sources, right? Try to find out what kind of credit you have. Like, do you have credit available on your credit cards? Do you have like a home equity line of credit? Like, you want to start identifying sources of income. You can also start thinking about maybe getting a side hustle when you come home from work, maybe taking on another side hustle to help pay some of those bills, maybe your Uber driving, your door dashing, your delivery services, things like that, ways that you can get money quickly. You could watch dogs, babysit. There's a lot of different things you can think of where you can bring in money quickly, although likely not going to cover your expenses in your career, because your career job is usually going to pay you a little more. But just start thinking about those things and seeing if there's any extra jobs you can start picking up. You want to use your discount food programs. So I like to do discount food shopping. There's enough videos on my channel about my discount food shopping if you're curious. But I go to places where food is discounted. So not a normal grocery store, but a grocery store where they have things that are expiring soon or have expired and they're frozen, and they sell them at least half off, if not up to 90% off. So I'll use that just in general to keep my costs low. But there's also things like food banks, and there's food nonprofits that will sell you like boxes of food for like $10 or $15. Examples would be in Phoenix, Market on the Move, the 3000 Club in Tucson. Market on the Move is also called Mom's Group. Borderland Produce Rescue, where they rescue produce from basically the landfill, and they sell you boxes of it for like $15. So there's some options for you to use discount food programs. Of course, your food banks will be available and ready to serve, as they do people in need all the time. One thing that we do a lot of is we will look through our house and start selling things that we don't need. In fact, my husband has someone coming over today to purchase a tent that we owned. And I think he listed it for $75, and I think he's selling it for $55. So he's giving him a discount. We're getting some money in, so we'll have that in case we need it. So look around your house and see if there's anything you can sell and make some quick money so that you have that. You want to check with HR or your boss, ask them if there's any hardship resources for you, and then you want to track every expense closely. So get a notebook and pen and write those things down. You could even consider going to an all-cash budget. At one of the times in our life when we were mostly in the Great Recession and we didn't have any money, I went to all cash. So I would withdraw money from the bank and I'd put it in the envelopes, and if the envelope was empty, we didn't buy anything. So like that was how, if I went to the grocery store and there was not enough money to pay the grocery bill from the grocery store, things went back. They didn't get on the credit card. They went back, and I would just tell her I can't get that. So you do what you do. So just track every expense closely. That's week 2. Let's talk about, should this go into week 3. So week 1, we talked about stabilizing. Week 2, we talked about kind of securing our cash flow. Let's talk about community and side income. So in week 3, this is when you're likely going to miss your first paycheck. So this is going to be the heartbreaking week for you. It is a heartbreaking week for anyone, especially if you're having to continue to go get gas to put in your car and go to work, and you live paycheck to paycheck, and where are you going to get the gas? Most people will put that on a credit card, and it's a shame. I don't have anything nice to say about a shutdown. The only thing I can say to you is these are the strategies that we've put in place after doing this for 5 times already. So the next thing is to, think about community and side income. So you're going to want to think about in your community where you can get additional food items, basically. So are there community meals? I know that our senior center in Phoenix offers seniors free meals if they need them. If not, they ask for like a $2 donation. They don't ask for a lot. So if you have money, they ask for a donation. If you don't have money, it's free. Food banks are another place where you can get free meals. There will be some church aid available. Talk to your local churches. You're going to want to do your best to cut your gas costs. I know that you're going into work and you're having to pay this gas bill. Think about public transportation if that can help. Think about ride sharing. Think about biking, scootering, whatever you can to cut down that expense. You can consider asking family and friends for temporary help. So don't be afraid. That's one of the things I didn't do during the Great Recession that I probably could have and maybe should have done, was ask for help from my family. I did not ask them, and it was a very big struggle. But those struggles that we go through make us who we are. So And then we talked a little bit in step 2 about looking for those side gigs, like babysitting, delivery, freelancing, things like that. You should be looking at those in week 2. In week 3, you're going to start implementing those if you haven't already. We talked a little bit about stretching our groceries in week 2. In week 3, we're starting to look at cooking with staples like rice and beans and oats. So those are your cheap staples that are nutritious, that will fill you up. And then, of course, everything we talked about with the discount food in week 2 is also applicable in week 3. Going into week 4, this is when it starts to get really painful for most people. So this is when you're going to have to talk to creditors. So this is when you're going to start at least thinking about it. So is there an option for extended relief with your creditors? If the shutdown continues to drag on, you may have to call your credit card companies, ask them, are there any programs that they have, whatever you can do. You're going to ask your mortgage company probably. You're going to look for every opportunity to get some extended relief if you can. You're going to, of course, delay any major purchases or elective expenses. Hopefully during this time, your air conditioner doesn't go out like mine went out this year. Hopefully none of those big emergency expenses come in. This is why it's so important to have a emergency fund budget. I always kind of put this in my kids' head, so I'll continue to share online that 3 to 6 months is the minimum, is what you need in the future. So if you don't have that now, that's okay. We're still talking about things you can do, but in the future, just consider doing the best you can to get that emergency fund up, even if you have to work a side hustle. I've worked 3 jobs at one time just to pay the bills. So I would not have a problem working multiple jobs so that I could, have an emergency fund or build that up. So sometimes we have to do the hard work, even if we don't want to miss out on things, or some of us, and probably some of you, are working already multiple jobs. So just do the best job you can, but you're going to be delaying those elective expenses if you can. It's possible that you might be able to apply for unemployment, although you will likely have to pay that back when you get your back pay. So I do not know if they will offer programs like that. Again, you're just going to have to keep your eyes and ears open for that, and hopefully we don't get into that far. But if we do, and I'm aware of it, I will come back and share with you what's going on. The next thing you want to do is check any state, city, county, any type of relief program they have. Many states at this point will starting to be getting calls from people for help, and so they may have some things available. The next thing is to start seeing how you can reduce the costs of any kind of expense that you have, including your health care bills. You may not be able to go, and I hate to even say this, I don't even want to say it, but you may not be able to see a provider that you need to see. You might have to defer a dental appointment. I would not defer anything that is critical. So do not do that. And again, I'm not a financial expert. I'm not your doctor. I'm not your lawyer. I'm just a girl on YouTube sharing that I've been through this 5 times. And these are the things I do. I start to delay things. I don't go get my tooth fixed if I need it. I don't go see my doctor unless I have to see my doctor. I will figure something out before. I'm the girl that had an allergy attack 2 weeks ago that took a Benadryl real quick instead of going to the ER. I do not recommend that. But all to say, these you're going to have to cut some things that are hard. You're going to have to start making some hard choices. So these are the long-term adjustments you're going to have to start looking at. Maybe you get a prescription that is a name brand that you need to not have a name brand on, and you need to get a generic. Maybe instead of going to CVS, you have to go to Costco for your prescriptions. Maybe you can't even do that, and you need to call your state to find out if there's any programs they have for you. Maybe you are used to going to the local grocery store and buying what's on sale. Well, now you're only going to buy the lost leaders that are on the front page of the sales items, or maybe you do some of the discount food shopping that we talk about on this channel. You will do the best job you can during this time. So the next thing is week 5, and this is when it gets tough, but it's not like we haven't been there before, right? The longest shutdown's been 35 days. We've been there, okay? at week 5, this is called the extended shutdown survival, you're going to start to rotate your resources. So you're going to start looking at your food banks and understanding which multiple food banks in the area. Like maybe you go here for this, maybe you go there for that. You're going to be looking at even more discount food shopping. So not only the food shopping that I talk about, so I have a place where I go get meat, and that's where meat is cheap. I have a place where I go get bread. It's a bread outlet. That's where I get bread. That's where bread is cheap. Sometimes the bread outlet even offers food for animals, which really is not for consumption, but it's not moldy. You would just have to get it and put it in your freezer right away if you were going to consume it, although they're not selling it for consumption, so I'm not telling you to do it. I'm just trying to say, think out of the box. There are some people that give away food on Facebook if they are moving. That could be an option for you. So you're going to start rotating resources and thinking about different ways you can get assistance. There will be some nonprofits, including your church, doing assistance. There might be some closed closets in your area that do assistance. So this is when you're starting to really kind of make sure you understand all of your options, and you're going to start checking them out, right? You're going to start going and seeing what they have. And I will tell you that I when I shop discount, or when I used to volunteer at the food banks, the people who work there are some of the nicest people, and they really understand struggle. So don't be ashamed to go and help yourself. Don't wait until you can't feed your family. Go. But they're some of the most nicest people I've ever met. So you're going to try to figure out how you can cut deeper during week 5. What does that mean? Well, I can tell you right now, I cut my internet to the cheapest internet plan I could get. So, and that's not even during shutdown. It's been a financial nightmare, to be honest with you, this year. So we've been cutting everything. But instead of having the high-speed, fast cable fiber internet, you get the $50 T-Mobile internet, or you cancel that completely and just rely on what your phone provider provides. I have the Visible plan on my phone. So that's $25 a month with unlimited mobile data. So I could just use this if I need to. It's not as good, but it can work. So this is when you start to cut that. You start to cut your phone bill. You start to cut your internet. You may pause cable. You could pause your cable or even cut your cable. You're going to want to think about lowering your utilities. So this is when, if it's cold, you grab a blanket and that's what you use, unless you need to turn the heat on, right? If it's hot, sometimes you don't turn on the AC. You take the pets and you take your family and you walk to the nearest library. I've been there and I've done that. Not with the pets though, because no pets allowed in my library. But I would take the kids and we would go to the library. In fact, that's what we did for fun a lot, especially during the Great Recession. We would walk to the library and have fun. All right, so this is when you're also going to want to start negotiating. So if you can negotiate your rent, you're going to start negotiating medical bills. You're going to start negotiating insurance. You're going to start calling up everyone that you owe money to and let them know that you don't have a paycheck, and you're going to find out where the room is for you to cut back on those expenses. And then in week 5, you're also going to start your plan to, once your back pay arrives, what you're going to do for recovery. So if you are someone who is not going to be paid at all, right? So if you're a contractor and you're not going to be paid at all, and you know this, you need to have this plan in place. So once you get back to work, how you fix the last 5 weeks or more. So hopefully, again, this doesn't last too long, but I think not panicking is a good idea, because most of our shutdowns are short. So the longest one, again, has only been 35 days, which is a long time, which is why I'm giving you 5 weeks worth of takeaways of planning for the survival guide. But don't panic. Focus on your needs first, and then, communicate where you need to with creditors. Hopefully you have some money put aside so that you have some emergency to ride this out. Use community resources without shame. That's what they're there for. And, when the back pay comes, if you're a federal worker, figure out how you're going to use it to kind of fix all the things. So In terms of encouragement for you, I hope to encourage you by saying most of these shutdowns don't last long at all. Most of them are going to be days, so you're not even going to need week 5. But in case it does, I wanted to provide it to you. Shutdowns are stressful, but remember, you're not alone. Focus on what you can control, lean on those community resources, communicate early with creditors and service providers. If you're a federal employee, you will receive back pay when it's over. Contractors may not, so it's even more important to use the available resources that are here. And no matter what, the season will pass, so stay calm, stay prepared, and take it one week at a time. God bless you. Bye.